Well, you might have heard by now, but Trae Young has officially been traded to the Wizards. CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert are going the other way, and there's no picks being swapped by either team. And honestly, the return's so small, I ended up waiting for more details to come out, but I guess the Hawks are just so desperate to get rid of Trae and his contract that they just dumped him for an expiring contract and a role player. I'm going to start with the Wizards side of this trade because I just love this move for them. I know Trae's had a rough season, but I think he's still an all-star caliber player who has shown he'll never shy away from the big moment, especially in the playoffs. He's averaging under 20 points a game and he's only shooting 41% from the field and a career worst 30% from three. So you can definitely see the risk in acquiring him, especially with the max contract he's probably going to demand in the offseason. But with all that in mind, I cannot emphasize enough how much I love this move for the Wizards. This is a guy who's been an offensive engine for almost his entire career. And if you look at his age, he's only 27, so theoretically he should be in the middle of his prime. Washington has a team where they've got a bunch of young guys who are still breaking out and giving them an elite level playmaker who can do wonders for their development. I'm just imagining the offensive boost Trey's going to give to a guy like Alex Sarr simply with the pick and roll chemistry they're going to build. I mean, just look at what Trey's done with guys like Clint Capella and John Collins, who, no offense, are I don't think are on the level of Alex Sarr, especially if you just look at talent wise. And that doesn't even account for the spacing he's going to provide for Koulibaly, Carrington, and George. Obviously, Trae is a huge negative on defense, and that's just something you're going to have to deal with, especially when you've got an undersized guard. But I think the Wizards are well positioned with all the defensive talent they've got that they can just surround him with great defenders and just deal with his defensive woes and take advantage of just all the juice he's going to provide for them offensively. I think they're too young right now to contend for a playing spot or a playoff spot, but I wouldn't put it past them, especially with how weak the East is right now. And I think if in the off season they're able to add, a couple of defenders or a couple of shooters, just some solid bench pieces, I think they can easily contend for a playoff spot. I don't know, maybe I'm being too optimistic about Trae Young. Um, but yeah, I mean, they still have so many young guys who are primed to take a jump next year too. I think the future is really bright in Washington, and I think they've set themselves up where they could be a very successful playoff caliber team. You know, obviously they don't have someone like Shea, but I think they could take an OKC-esque jump, where a team that's consistently just in the lottery and then boom, one year, all the young guys take a jump. They add a couple of guys for the bench and they're just right there in the mix in the playoffs, 4 or 5 seed and then, we'll see where they go from there. Moving on to the Hawks side of this trade, this was a very underwhelming return in my opinion, especially for a guy who's been a franchise icon over the last 8 seasons, but there's obviously time for the two sides to split up, and I think the Hawks still have an exciting future. Jalen Johnson's been the best player on the roster for some time now, so it'll be exciting to see what sort of supporting cast the Hawks are going to be able to provide for him moving forward. CJ is an interesting piece, as his main contribution to the trade really is just the fact that he's on an expiring contract, and this gives the Hawks the flexibility to go after someone like AD in the future. For the sake of this video, I'm going to try and talk about the pieces that they got back and not the moves that they could potentially make in the future with this trade, but CJ is definitely not the player he was with the Trailblazers and Pelicans. I think he can still be a contributor on a winning team, especially where he's not expected to be a star or leaned on offensively, really. He's also been relatively healthy this year, which is huge for the Hawks, as Trae's only played in 10 games so far, and as long as CJ can not be a negative on the floor, he's going to provide more for them than Trae has for the past month and a half. It'll be interesting to see how the Hawks use him and if he starts over Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think they should probably just keep him off the bench, but you never know. Maybe he provides them a different look. I don't know. And a little more on CJ. He's obviously still a solid scorer. He can give you 18 points on decent efficiency, which I think at this stage the Hawks will take. Trae Young's been out. Reece Shay's had his own problems. Jalen Johnson's really been the main consistent scorer. I know Nikhil Alexander Walker's also had an up and down season, more up lately, but yeah, I don't know. I think strictly looking at his contributions this season, he could be a pretty good plus and a pretty significant add for them. But I still don't think upside wise he's anywhere near Trae or the production, playmaking, shooting Trae would provide. But yeah, we'll have to see. Corey Kispert was the second piece of this trade, and from the reports, it looks like he was the main piece the Hawks wanted back, which I don't know, to me just feels insane, especially when we're talking about a Trae Young trade. But I guess the Hawks front office obviously sees him as a guy who can contribute, so that's all that really matters at the end of the day. He's a very good shooter, and he can hit close to 40% from three, which is always very valuable, especially with how the league is nowadays. When looking at the roster, I think Kispert probably just replaces Kennard's minutes, as they're very similar players. Kispert's just a better defender, so this definitely improves the Hawks' bench minutes and makes them a better team. So there is that. I think Corey and CJ both provide the Hawks some good depth in shooting, and that's pretty important for them, especially given how many minutes or how many games they've missed from Trae Young and Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, on the surface, this feels like an awful return for the Hawks, but it's clearly just a cap dump, and provides them more flexibility in the future for moves like Anthony Davis or maybe another star. It does, in the present, make them a better team as Trae Young just hasn't been playing, so adding a guy like CJ and Corey Kispert will probably help them win games, and that's pretty important for a team in the play-in and hopes to make the playoffs. So at this current point in time, I think it definitely makes them a better team. Long term, I think it clearly makes them worse. I think Trae Young is an offensive engine, like I said earlier, but it's pretty clear he wasn't working out with them. So I guess this is where they're at. And quickly looking back at the Trae Young era in Atlanta, I do think it's kind of insane. The guy's been in the league for 8 seasons, and he's never had an All-Star teammate, and despite that, was still able to lead them to a conference finals appearance. It's clear the last couple of seasons have been a disappointment with 2 first-round exits and not even making the playoffs last year. But I personally put that more on the Hawks front office than him. Jalen Johnson's definitely been the best teammate Trey's ever had, and it's sad to see them never go on a run together. I wish we got a chance to see them work it out, but it's clear that they've been better with Jalen Johnson on the floor and Trae Young on the bench than Jalen Johnson and Trae Young on the floor. So it seemed like the right time to move on. I don't love the return they got, but I mean, who knows what Trae Young's value is right now. I guess this is the best they could get. And they just wanted to rip the band-aid off and get them the freedom financially to go out and get someone else. But yeah, anyways, that's just my opinion on the trade. So let me know what you think of the trade down below, and I guess what you think of my opinion. I don't know.